Okay, tonight I'm going to get started with the land acknowledgement. And instead of the usual one, I want to share a quote from the final report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, because it fits really well. Reconciliation between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal Canadians from an Aboriginal perspective also requires reconciliation with the natural world. If human beings resolve problems between themselves, but continue to destroy the natural world, then reconciliation remains incomplete. So this was written 10 years ago now. I had to really think about that. I thought, really, that was 10 years ago. So obviously we're not yet there, though there are many of us who are continuing to work for the natural world in our community. And as you can see, we're all here tonight. You have a big community who is all working on this together, but we need your help. So thank you very much for coming tonight. And you are going to hear a lot of things about what you can do to support the natural world. And now I'm turning it over to Bill to talk about climate momentum for a minute.
Yeah. Yes, I'm Bill James Aber. I'm coordinator for the Climate Momentum Group here in town. And it's out of that Climate Momentum Group that Sheila Clark and her organizing committee have brought us this fabulous series of climate conversations. You know, if you've been coming to them regularly, this is the 5th in the series. There are 3 more in the batting order. And I want to give a shout out to Sheila and her committee for organizing this whole series for us. It's been a lot of work and a lot of energy. The shout out as well to City Hall, to Stratford. The city provides this auditorium for us free of charge, and tech support as well. So we're very grateful for that ongoing support. It just makes it so much easier to be in the same location month after month after month. Now, before I pass it back to Felicity to introduce our speaker for tonight, I've got 2 things I want to alert you to, and they're the upcoming events in April. They both come in the last week, just after Easter. So on the Thursday after Easter, 4th Thursday of April, we'll have our next climate conversation in the series. The topic that night is green tourism. Zach Gribble, the executive director of Destination Stratford, will be here, as well as, pardon me, Teresa Albert, sorry, Teresa, from the Rosehurst B&B, who will also be part of the presentation that evening. That's on Thursday. On the Sunday, we're having a street party at Factory 163, our 4th annual birthday street party. Food vendors, live music, activities for kids. I don't know about you, but I could use a party right before that. So come on over for that at Factory 163 at 163 King Street. And as I was saying earlier, best way to keep abreast of all of those kinds of events, if you're not already on our email newsletter list, you can sign up. There's a manual clipboard to write your name in on our newsletter mailing list, just outside of the table. Or you can just go to the climatemomentum.ca website and sign up there. That'll keep you up to speed on everything that we're doing. So that's it for me. I'm going to pass it back to Felicity to introduce our speaker.
So tonight I have the pleasure of introducing Don Farwell. He's a tireless champion of the natural world in Stratford. He's an inspiration to all of us who work for the restoration of natural spaces in our community. Don is a natural-born leader who spent many years as a principal. He's a visionary whose passion is just infectious. I have been lucky enough to accompany him on walkabouts through the city, where he shares his vision for projects that we could be achieving together. Don has an almost magical green thumb. In this off-season, his fridge is full of seeds and cuttings, and then in the spring, his backyard is absolutely full of trees and shrubs. He has his own nursery back there. He generously shares these plants with anyone who can find a space for them, and he shares his time with anyone who wants to work on a naturalization project. Don is well known for the Relief Stratford project, in which the Master Gardeners pledged to plant 2,022 trees in 2022. He led the small but mighty team, and they've surpassed this goal. They are responsible for planting native trees and shrubs along the riverbank beside the John Street Weir, as well as all throughout the TJ Dolan natural area. And most recently, Don and the Master Gardeners have made a natural garden in front of our emergency department. You should check it out. They also naturalized a garden at the Huron Hospice in Clinton. Don takes care of a section of the Churchill Circle Garden every summer. There, he has shown all of us how to incorporate native plants into traditional plantings while still making a beautiful space for everyone to enjoy. He inspires all of us. Anyone who is interested in naturalizing their garden or a public space should definitely start by talking to Don, because you will be inspired and then he will support you. So I'm turning the mic over to Don.
Wow, that was pretty generous. If that was my eulogy for my funeral, that was, except for the last one. If you can't hear me, raise your hand. I get excited, I talk too fast, so if you want me to slow down, just do this. And I'll slow down a little bit. So this is a climate conversation. I'm calling it Kiss a Bumblebee. I don't want anybody to kiss a bumblebee. It won't turn out well for you or the bee. But it sounds a whole lot better than let's show some love for pollinators. That was a mouthful. So this sounds a little bit better. So go ahead, kiss a bumblebee, but not literally. This is a passenger pigeon. This is an extinct bird. And I want to tell you the story to start this. In 1878, the year my grandma Farwell was born, a flock of passenger pigeons landed on Goderich. According to the Clinton paper, it covered every tree for 14 miles around. And so it's a huge flock, much smaller than the ones that were there in previous generations, but still a pretty substantial flock. That's the year my grandma was born. By the time my dad, her seventh child, was born, they were extinct. So the question is, I never did ask my grandma, Grandma, did you ever see a passenger pigeon? I never did ask her that. They were there were sightings up until the 1900s, but I never asked her. And I'm wondering with my small grandkids, when they get to be old ladies, if somebody's going to ask them, Grandma, did you ever see a monarch butterfly? Or Grandma, were there still chickadees around when you were a little girl? Or Grandma, were there still robins when you were young? This cartoon shows the progression. Those of you who are my vintage, and a lot of you are, would know that when we went driving in the summertime, when we were out and about in the evening, the windshield got smattered every time. You could not get home without washing your windshield. So that's 1990 according to that. That's really 1950, but 1990 and the year 2000 according to this calendar, this cartoon, we're down to a much smaller number. And according to the cartoon in 2050, won't be any people if there are no pollinators, there are no bugs. This is Doug Tallamy. I don't know if you can see his picture. Yeah, you can't see his picture up in the corner there. But Doug Tallamy is one of my favorite authors. He's got tons and tons of videos online and they're really fun to watch. He's like a machine gun and he goes, 1, 2, 3, 4. He just keeps on going. And he says, if insects disappear, you're gonna lose all your flowering plants. What do we eat? We eat mostly flowering plants, the fruits of flowering plants. That would change the energy flow right through our ecosystems if we lost those insects. Because the rapid decrease, loss of our food chain. By the way, it would support amphibians and reptiles and everything. How many put your hand up if you saw a frog or toad in the last year? Oh, good, I love you. This is awesome. Because there aren't that many around anymore. When I was a kid, there were all kinds of them. We'd go down the creek and play with them, but there are not too many around anymore. And the last thing he says is the biosphere would rot because the decomposers that take care of all the dead things would disappear. And humanity, it says here, would be doomed. I can't read that, but that's what it says. So I remember when I was a kid, the only good bug was a dead bug. Now, I scoured the internet looking for the Raid commercial because it's even better than this one. This one's a different one. And I put that on there because the idea has shifted hugely. Bugs are not all bad. If you have ants in your house, you don't want them. If you have cockroaches or bed bugs, you don't want them in your house. But insects are good. This thing is a total lie. It's totally false. There's National Geographic, just to emphasize the fact that our pollinators are in trouble and you'll miss them when they're gone. So who are the major pollinators in North America? Well, we think of the the honeybee. The honeybee is an imported bee, and you know what's happening with them. They're suffering from colony collapse disorder. They're having difficulty. They're a farmed bee, and there's millions of them, and the agricultural crops like strawberries and blueberries and all that depend on them, and they're an important thing. When they disappear, we're going to lose a lot of those crops, unless we can find ways to encourage the native bees to take their place. So there's 4,000 species of native bees in North America, 4,000. We only know, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 that, you look at the bees and say, okay, that's a bumblebee, that's a honeybee, that's a something else. But there are 4,000 in North America. A lot of them are out west, but we've got hundreds and hundreds here. 14,000 species of butterflies and moths. Now think about that. We recognize maybe 20 or 30 butterflies, but the moths are the unsung heroes of pollination. They are the ones that come mostly in the evening and at night to come and pollinate plants. So they are exceedingly important. So who are the pollinators? Well, there's the insects and the birds and the rodents and squirrels and all that. Insects are really important. 80% of all plants and 90% of all angiosperms, those are the flowering plants, are pollinated by the animals. So if you go back there, those are the pollinators that we know. Losing our pollinators is not an option for any of us. We cannot afford as a human species to lose our pollinators. Well, there's Doug Tallamy's picture at the top. Yeah, there he is. Look him up, Tall Amy, Doug Tallamy. He's, like I said, amazing. So caterpillars transfer more energy up the food chain than any other species. So caterpillars are at the basis of the food chain. And what do? We grow our roses, and the bugs and the insects eat holes in them, and we say, oh gosh, that's terrible. Or we have our fruit trees, and somebody called into the Ed Lawrence and said, bugs are eating I never get any fruit on my fruit trees. He says, what do? Well, I spray them every 2 weeks. Well, then you're killing all the pollinators. So you don't have anybody to pollinate the plants, so they're going to die. They're going to not produce fruit. We can't have that happen. We need to have pollinators, and I don't know how I can say that any stronger than that. Pollinators are the basis of our food chain. Without them, we're in deep trouble. And you went back to that cartoon, you know that those of you who are my vintage know that there were lots of bugs back then. And now you can leave your screens off your windows and hardly get any flies or anything in at all because the insect population has dropped immensely. The good news is we can do something about it. And we're going to start here tonight doing something about it, I hope. It's important to recognize that many insects require specific host plants. So there's a monarch butterfly from my garden, and it can go around to hundreds of different plants. They take pollen and nectar from all kinds of different plants. There's a beautiful relationship between the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. So the plants send out a pheromone, a beautiful smell, and the bugs come in and the insects come in and say, oh, I love this. And they run in there and they get some nectar in there and they take some pollen, they go over to the next plant and they cross-pollinate. So it makes the plant kingdom healthier because they don't have the inbreeding. The plants have a source of pollen from down the street and further on. So all that is important to us. So this plant sends out an odor, the insect comes in, takes some pollen, there's some nectar. They don't have to wait till Friday for payday. They get paid right away to go off and pollinate the next plant. And so that's a beautiful dance between the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. Plants, there are keystone plants and keystone animals. One of the keystone animals I showed you at the very beginning. Keystone animal is an animal or a plant that is central to the ecosystem. It's really important. It's the basis of an ecosystem. And so keystone plants are essential because they support the caterpillars. And the caterpillars are what turn into the insects. So you know that caterpillars are part of, I don't have to do this, but most insects, a lot of insects, lay the eggs, they grow into larvae, which grow into pupa. So larvae that eat the leaves, and then they grow into adults from the pupa stage. Not all, but some. By the way, there's a huge variety of ways that plants reproduce or procreate. There's a huge variety of the way that animals procreate. We've only got one way as humans, but animals and plants have a huge variety of ways to procreate. So going back to keystone plants, some of the keystone plants are the oaks and the willows and the cherries and the birches. So the oak tree, according to Dr. Tallamy, supports over 500 species of insects. So think about that. He's had, graduate students go around and collecting insects from oak trees. There's over 500 different species that are supported by one oak tree, which is, when you think about that, that's, you don't even know those 500 species around, but they're there. And they're eating the oaks. And the willows and the birches and maples and cherries and those things are also important pollinator supports. And then there are all kinds of other trees. My yard, our yard at my place, is a biological desert in a lot of ways. I have a bunch of great big trees and not one is native. And I should tell you that when I was a little young, a little foolish, I climbed up the top of a spruce tree and I looked down every branch to look for a nest, because I'm a birder, I love birds. I looked down every branch looking for a nest. There were none, because birds don't know how to deal with, maybe in 10,000 years they will know how to deal with those plants, but they don't know how to deal with them now because they didn't grow up with them. So it's like a plastic Christmas tree sitting out there. They don't know they could sit there and make a nest. And maybe they're smart enough to know that if they made a nest on that spruce tree, they'd get eaten because the structure of the tree is not conducive to protecting the nest. So you think about those trees here, those are the keystone, some of the keystone native trees that we grow around here. They're keystone, they're really important. There are non-native trees like the ginkgo, which is a lovely tree. It's kind of thought to be extinct, and they brought it back from China, you know, I don't know, 100 years ago or so. It supports 0, maybe 2 or 3 types of insects. So it's, you know, they're a beautiful tree. They do all kinds of other things. They, you know, they sequester carbon, they, you know, the windbreaks and all that other stuff. They're beautiful, but they don't do the ecological job we want them to do. There's some of the flowers. Goldenrods are among the top pollinator plants in our area. So goldenrods do not cause hay fever. It's the ragweed that appears at the same time that causes hay fever. I want you to know you can grow goldenrods without any problem. And there's half a dozen different species of goldenrod. There's gray goldenrod, there's blue stem goldenrod. There's a whole bunch of them. You don't have to have the wild one that grows out in the fields. Asters in the fall are wonderful at at supporting bugs. There are some non-native plants too that are really great at supporting insects. So I sat in my backyard 5 or 10 years ago on a fall day, sunny day, and I said, "Oh, it's a great day." I was watching autumn joy sedum. I counted 19 different species. I have no idea what they were, but 19 different species of insects on that one plant. So my advice to you is when you go out to buy plants, look for ones that the bees and butterflies are going after. Look mainly for native plants because they're the ones that the insects know how to eat. I put this in because I love birds. Chickadees, we think of them, they eat seeds, right? Well, they don't just eat seeds. They feed their babies something much softer, much juicier, much more nutritious, and that's caterpillars. So they take 6,000 to 9,000 caterpillars to raise one clutch to get out of the nest. And then they still feed them for another week or 2 weeks at least. So you think about how many caterpillars mom and dad chickadee have to bring back to the nest. There's a huge number. And if you don't have native trees and shrubs and native flowers in your garden, you're not going to have anything for the chickadees to eat. They're not going to nest there. They're going to nest at your neighbors or somewhere down the street. So you want to have native plants in your garden. And lots of variety. You want to have them that bloom in the spring early, bloom in the fall late. You want to have different colors of plants because this bug might want that one and that one likes another color. You will want to have different flower shapes. You want to have tubular shapes for the insects that have long tongues. You'll want to have composite flowers like sunflowers for others. So it takes, when you think about the relationships in nature, beautiful dance between plants and animals. And take time to sit down and watch it because 6,000. Can you imagine going out to find 6,000 insects to bring back within 2 weeks? Wow, what a job. So there's Doug Talley again. He says, when you compare native gardens to non-native plants, the native plants produce 75% fewer chickadees or caterpillars. The non-native provide 75% fewer caterpillars. And think about that. You know, you want to have caterpillars, unless you're growing roses for display or whatever else, or if you're growing a crop for sale, you can't have, you know, your corn eaten up by corn earworm unless you can find a market for corn earworms. So I'm talking about home gardeners mainly. You know, if a garden is introduced plants, it's going to have fewer caterpillars. They're gonna have 60% fewer breeding chickadees. The nests are gonna have fewer eggs. The clutches are less likely to survive, and the nests produce fewer fledglings, and maturation is delayed. And then you think about that, we all love birds. Birds are part of the food chain that we talked about earlier, and they gotta eat. What do they eat? Well, they eat seeds, they eat fruit, but they feed their babies caterpillars. So Doug Talladega here, he's hidden away under my picture. He says aim for 70% native biomass. So when we decorate our gardens, we look for pretty. We go to the nursery, we buy the prettiest plant we can find. A lot of those pretty plants don't support any of the natural world. They don't support it. But they may be pretty for us. So if you can read that in the back, decorative value is on that side. And on this side of the mass is everything from public health to climate change mitigation to watershed health, to pollinator support, food web, and the cost of management and ecosystem health. So we need to, when we buy plants to put in our garden, we need to think about, hey, what am I doing? What am I supporting here? Am I growing something because it looks nice? So it's worthwhile doing? Or am I growing it because it's going to support the wildlife that we depend on in our lives? So this is just a quick thing I put in there because Miyawaki Forest is a researcher in Japan that, you know, has this forest that he grows like they're just boom, 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 close together and everything else. And I want to make sure you understand that forests provide a lot of ecosystem service. I'm not going to read them all, but you know what they are. They sequester carbon, they provide shade, they cool things down, they absorb rainwater. They do a ton of things that are good for the environment. So grow forests in your backyard, grow big trees, grow shrubs, grow ground plants, grow ivies and stuff that climb up. So you want to make sure that your yard has tall things and short things, mostly native things. Like I said, my garden is not going to be a native garden in my lifetime because those big trees are going to last another 50 years and I'm not cutting them down. They're still providing shade. They're still providing, you know, ecosystem services. You can't read that, but those are the root systems of plants. So they're prairie plants. One way over on the left is turf grass. And when you look at your lawn most August, the reason it's brown is because of those root systems over there. I don't know if you can see that or not. On the left-hand side, way over here. This, you can't see it, is turf grass has root systems that go down that far. Whereas all those native plants have root systems that go down, way down. And so they can survive grazing by deer and buffalo and whatever else. They can also survive forest fires. Because what happens is they take their plant, the plant takes their nutrition and shoves it down into the root, stores it there. So those plants are well adapted to drought. They're well adapted to cold. They're well adapted to everything we can throw at them. So they are much more beneficial than lawns. So how much lawn do we really need? So think about that. If you have a soccer pitch, if you have a family that loves playing soccer in the backyard, you've got grandkids, great, you need a lawn. If you got a dog, you probably need a lawn. But do we need a lawn on every property? Or do we need a national park? And Doug Talladega is talking about homegrown national parks. He said, we can't, as a country, put together another Yellowstone, or in Canada, it would be, we can't put together another Algonquin Park. We can't assemble that land in any kind of reasonable thing. But we can bring nature to our cities. We can bring nature to our backyards. If you do a little bit, 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 all the way along, next thing you know, we'll have a national park-like ecosystem within our city. And that's what I'm challenging you to do tonight. Think about ways that you can provide nutrition for insects. You can provide ecosystem services for the food chain. I put this in because this is a beautiful rug, but when it's cut up, it's not a rug anymore. It's the same with our ecosystems. If you have a complete ecosystem that's joined up from one end of the city to the other, you have a viable ecosystem. But if you have it all cut up, you have a little patch here, a little patch there, a little patch there. And the insects don't fly 100 miles. They don't fly from one side of the city to the other looking for food. They want to go from your yard to the next door yard and back and forth, but not great distances. So we're talking about pollinator pathways where, you know, 3 families get together and say, hey, I'm gonna grow some pollinator plants in my yard. You want to plant some in yours? I got some here. I'm gonna give you the plant over next door. So put 3 or 4 gardens together. Next thing you have 15 together. In Stratford, we have a beautiful park at TJ Dolan, and you follow that along. We planted a bunch of shrubs along the river there. 15, 20 years ago, the Energy and Environment planted along the flats at Central. We want to have native plants all the way along the river, from one end of the city to the other. The city's done a good job on leaving the native plants, flowers along the river until September when the boats come in. You have to have they clear them, they cut them down, but they leave them there for most of the summer, and that's a great thing. We need to put some more on the north side of the river. We need to plant there to control erosion, but also to provide habitat. And then we've got plants that go all the way along the Devon Park. The Rotary Club has planted hundreds of trees and shrubs there. We have probably 15 or 20 acres of city property that is mowed every week, all summer long, in Devon Park. Now, what's it used for? Nothing. There's a playground down there, and I walk a lot, and I've seen kids there the odd time, but not very much. So that's space that could be used to build a garden for people to eat in. It could be used to build a forest, could be used to build a meadow and bring in all those butterflies and things. So what we want to do is encourage homeowners to plant native plants in their yard, their neighbor's yard, and down the street everywhere. And to help you do that, we brought some native plant seeds. And basically, we're giving them away because we'd like you to grow them. And when you grow some, give them to your neighbors, and help grow bugs in your yard. There's our Tri-County Master Gardeners. We're at the back there, and Denise and Leslie will help you out there. But we grew 3,600 native trees and shrubs in 22 and 23. We got $15,000 worth of funding. 160 volunteers came out to help us dig, including the current mayor who came out and brought his pickaxe along and helped out. And 14 groups joined together to help plant. And I think, it's a marvelous thing that the community came together to do that. And when I look at the crowd tonight, and I think to myself, my God, there's that many people interested in bugs, in insects, in caterpillars, in bees. Wow, that's awesome. So here's 9 things you can do, and this is according to Doug Towney. Cut your lawn in half. You don't need to have a great big lawn. And if you want a lawn, put it in your front. But your backyard doesn't have to be lawn. It doesn't even have to be as neat and tidy as a front yard. And if you really want to have a lawn, leave it grow. Don't cut it. You can cut around the outside edge to make it look like your property's not neglected. And maybe even put a little bumblebee sign in there that shows that, hey, I'm looking after the environment. And plant for specialist bees. I didn't go into this, but there are tons and tons of specialist bees that will not live on any flower or anything else. I mentioned the butterfly, the monarch butterfly. I didn't get through it. I didn't say what I wanted to say. The monarch butterfly, you know that, will only eat milkweed. The only place it will eat was milkweed, because, and you think to yourself, "Oh, that's kind of stupid, why would an insect only eat one thing? Why would it restrict itself to one thing?" And the answer is, because there's a beautiful dance between the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. The plant doesn't want to get eaten, so it creates poisons. That's why your lettuce in August tastes rough, because it creates a poison, so that, you don't want, the lettuce doesn't want you to eat it. So you look at it, why would a plant produce digitalis, or, why would the willow tree produce acetylsalicylic acid, or the acacia tree tannic acid, or, any of the other, by the way, a lot of our medications came from trees and plants originally, so you think about that. So the animal kingdom has to learn how to eat that if they're going to survive. So they will go ahead and specialize on a special diet of plants. So for instance, the milkweed is the host plant for the monarch butterfly. We all know that. Without milkweed, there won't be any monarch butterflies. What the monarch butterfly does is, over thousands of years, it's learned to digest that milky, ugly, sticky poison that's in there. It learned to digest it. So the mother lays eggs on milkweed. The babies hatch out, the little caterpillars eat the milkweed, and they can grow. They grow well on that because they have learned to take that alkaloid poison that's in the milkweed and turn it into food. So I don't want to get into dog strangling vine, but it's also one of the family of milkweed. And it is, Mama looks at that and says, "Hey, a good spot here to lay my eggs." She lays her eggs, caterpillars hatch out and they eat away, but they starve to death before they impupate, because there's not enough nutrition in that. Anyway, so this one says plant for specialist bees, plant for specialist butterflies, moths as well. And remove invasive plants from your property. I've got some in mind. We all have. We need to look after them. Use those keystone plants, so things that support the most insects. And then reduce light pollution. This one we don't think about. But you know what moths do when the lights are on? They all circle around them. They don't know what to do because oh, it's moonlight up there. I don't know what they're thinking, but they don't do what moths should do in the middle of the night, because they're busy going around and around, expending their energy doing that. So Doug Tallamy says, reduce your light pollution, and then don't spray, and don't use bug zappers. And it says, join your homeowners association. But I'm saying, let's join our community in working toward this. And that's only 9 things you can do. As a matter of fact, there's 1,000 things we can do. And after our break, we're going to list 1,000 things to do. We may not get 1,000, but we're going to do that. We're going to work on it. So think about that while you're having your break. And that was the end of that. But I do have something else I want to show you. I have sign-up sheets I'll put up on the table here. And you welcome to come up and sign up on this. And put your name down. Not that you're committing yourself to something, but that you are offering to help out in making this a better place. So I'd like information on becoming a master gardener. I'd like to help remove invasive plants. I need to hear from you that. Volunteer for that. I'd like to support a cultural society to maintain the public gardens. Maureen over there, they always need help looking after the gardens. I would like to help work on the pollinator plan for the city, for the whole community. I need 2 hands. There you go. Oh, I can't get that apart. There we go. I'd like information on planting pawpaw trees. I have pawpaw trees in my fridge, seeds. By the way, tiger swallowtails. There are only 2 host plants for that. One is a pawpaw, the other one is a prickly ash. And if you want tiger swallowtails, you have to have either prickly ash, and you know what happened then, or Popeyes. I would like to help transplant flower seedlings. I'd like to grow native shrubs and cuttings. I'd like to help the Rotary Club plant trees. I'd like to help, I'd like an opportunity, I'm looking for an opportunity to work with a group to start a forest or start a meadow somewhere in the state. And I'd like to, I'm asking as well, how can we help you and your organization support pollinators? So we are a resource as master gardeners. We can help you if you have, your organization wants to start a meadow, wants to work with the Upper Thames in doing a rain garden or in whatever else, we can help you. So if you are interested, if you have a project in mind, you want to, run it by us, put your name down or give us a call. We have a website. So that's it for me for now. Are you ready to quit for now, or you want break time, or what do you want to do?
Not quite, not quite. Thank you, Don. That was absolutely amazing. I have learned so much in that short time, so start planting keystones, okay? Let's get those chickadees off the ground. Right now, we'll stop for questions and answers, Q&A, and then we will allow each of the displays at the back to have a moment to tell you about the displays, and then we can break. So we'll start with Q&A. We have another mic, which, thank you.
There we are.
Thank you, Don. Okay.
These are, right? I was wondering, you were talking about only doing your back turns, why not front turns?
Oh, yeah. Listen. In an ideal world, there wouldn't be any lawns in the city. You just try to put native plants across your whole front yard. You might get some support from your neighbors, or you might get some flack. So if you want to start, start in the backyard, or if you've got good neighbors, work with them. You do your boulevards, your front yard. There's all kinds of resources out there. Blooming Boulevards in Mississauga does a great job of supporting. They give away free plants, the 50 plants for people who want to build a boulevard. So, great.
I just had one follow-up.
Sure.
How do you deal with the fact that all the salt and stuff comes off the roads and gets blown onto it and?
You
stuff
plant
on your lawn?
salt.
This year, we all had to shovel it off.
You plant salt tolerant plants. Now, in the hospital bed that Felicity mentioned, we planted salt tolerant plants that are more or less salt tolerant. One back there.
Yeah, I'm impressed every spring when the weed man comes calling, and I really chase them away. But I wish there were some way that this kind of thinking could be banned or somehow regulated.
Here's the best way to regulate it. If you say no and everybody else in the room says no, and eventually they're gonna get the message that, you know what, there isn't any money, so I'm gonna quit.
But I guess what do you want to build soccer?
Well, I know. And we're 50 years from now, it may have changed. And if you can help change it, I can help change it, we can work together as a community to make it change. But you can't just pass a law that says, no more invasive plants for sale, although that may come. There may be a law coming up, there's a bunch of people working on it. Proposing legislation that says you can't buy some of these invasive plants.
Is it, yeah, the other thing I would ask is, I love birds and I put out bird feed and I plant things that they like. But, I'm really worried, I never have like bats, but I don't see them. I used to see bats flying in the evening, around my house, and I haven't seen a bat for, I don't know how long. Do to help bats?
Well, you can build a bat house. They're not particularly successful, but you can. And you can let dead trees stand. They nest in dead trees and old buildings. So if you have, a shed out the back and have bats in there, you leave it alone. You don't wanna live in it. You don't wanna have them in your house, but they're not hurting anybody out in the shed.
What they need is that.
They need, yeah, if you don't have insects, you won't have bats.
And I think New Jersey has, is it New Jersey that has a law about invasive plants? They do not allow nurseries to sell invasive plants.
Yeah, and in fact, I think the nurseries would be happy with that. Because, I go in and say, like, why are you selling this stuff? Well, because it's permitted. And the answer is, you shouldn't be selling it, but I'm gonna sell it because it makes money. And if everybody else is selling it, why shouldn't I? So a lot of the nurseries from Landscape Ontario, they're saying, we'd all be happy not to sell these things if it was a law in the whole province.
I want to go back to this for a minute. We're looking to hire a maintenance company this summer. I can't work in part. And, part of their service is a weed killer. And they say it's all natural, so it's okay. Can you give me your opinion on that?
I certainly can. And this is my opinion. If they're killing insects, they're not your friend. Okay? Anybody else? Yep, one here.
There's myself with this question. Can you explain invasive plants?
Sure.
I don't know.
There are plants that have been brought here from elsewhere that are taking over our environment. And the reason they're taking over our environment is because there are no natural enemies for it. So you've heard of Phragmites, I'm sure, which is grows on all the waterways. And it's hugely invasive because it grows everywhere and it smothers out the native vegetation. And it also smothers out the fish and the turtles and whatever else because they're so thick they can't get through it. And then other ones, there's Japanese knotweed, which grows in Stratford, grows prolifically here, and you can't get rid of it. You have to almost get a backhoe in and dig it up. So if somebody wants to give you something called Japanese bamboo or knotweed or whatever else, just say, no, thank you, don't want it, because it's hugely invasive. And there's all kinds of plants and animals that, once they get here, are totally out of control. Purple loosestrife is another one, yep. And it's one that came over from somewhere, I forgot now where. And it's a nasty one. 10, 20 years ago, it covered all of our waterways. And snuffed out a lot of the fish and wildlife that live in it. Yep. Well, we go more here. How many more questions do you want?
A couple.
Okay.
Are there any rules in the city of Stratford about planting along boulevards or like alongside roadways? There's plants in the city inhibits lopping these.
Okay, I think the rule of thumb would be, if you've got plants that are that high, that are obstructing the view, you don't want them there. But if you have plants this high, that are not sprawling over the sidewalk, and that are not bothering people, they're not gonna bother you about that, And so I would say, plant things that are low and salt tolerant. One more. There's one back there. Jen?
To, let the grass go, and grow in your backyard, not just anything but. Are you encouraging ticks?
Yes. Okay, yeah, ticks are going to be here anyway. So what you want to do with your backyard is plant things that the ticks don't particularly like and put a pathway through that's this wide. So you don't have to brush up against plants, because ticks are assassin attack bugs. They sit on the plant and they wait for you to go by. And they don't jump out at you, they just wait for you to go by. So if you have a mess of backyard, you're gonna get ticks in. If you have a yard that is manicured to some degree and has a path through it, you're gonna be fine. And the other thing is, anytime you're out in nature, check yourself for ticks.
There's another one there. Get that one, and you're the last.
If you have plans already and you're not sure what it is, do you have an app or preferably a free one that you don't have to subscribe so that can
Yep.
help you to identify what it is, whether it's a key?
Yes, iNaturalist is totally free and it is used to create, they use it to build the database of plant identification. So once they've got like 1,500 confirmed pictures of this particular plant, they know what it is. So take pictures, submit it to iNaturalist, is totally free, and it contributes to the knowledge base, which is what we want to do.
It's a great app. We would now like to, invite each of the, displays back there to, they've got a max of 5 minutes each to tell you what is there. And, what's that one on the left?
Bonnie? That's the upper Thames.
That's the, pardon? Oh, that's E&E, invasive plants. Okay, would the person come forward who's going to address that one? Anita? Do you want me to bring it?
I'll bring it.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anita Jacobson, and I'm a member of the city's Energy and Environment Committee. And I'd just like to take a few moments to tell you a little bit about what E&E has been working on in the last couple of years that supports this whole idea of pollinator pathways and pollinators that Dawn was talking about. A really big achievement that we had last year was that we got the city of Stratford to commission and then adopt a Stratford invasive plant plan. So what this does is lays out a blueprint for us to, first of all, identify the problems with invasive plants within the city of Stratford park system, and then identify key plants within, because the list of invasive plants, unfortunately, is probably hundreds of plants long. So that's more than, you know, we can deal with. It's almost overwhelming. So we sort of highlight what the most important or the target species are, and then to come up with a plan of how to tackle that. There's things that the city does, there's things that we have to contract out. And last year we had a very active group volunteering and actually hands-on work to tackle some of the more, I won't say easily removed, but more easily removed invasive species. And there were two places that we were working on. We were working on the north shore of Lake Victoria. There's some pictures here of the work that we were doing. This area had been reconstructed. It's behind the houses by the Bill Hutt Bridge. So that area had been reconstructed, I think, about 5 years ago, and native plants put in, but with the pandemic and everything else, the plants sort of got neglected and were becoming overwhelmed with unwanted weeds and invasive plants. So we were going in about monthly, pulling out the things that we didn't want, keeping the native plants, and we've had some really good results there. The other thing we were doing was about once a month from about April of last year through to the fall, we go into TJ Dolan and tackle various invasive species. So we had periwinkle coals, we had garlic mustard coals, Himalayan balsam, and in the fall we were tackling some of the woody invasives like buckthorn and Norway maple. And this is something that, you know, it's a really feel-good thing because you can see the problem. You go in, you spend a couple hours, and you have a result. You've pulled the plants that are not wanted out. And this is important because they're taking up resources that our native plants would otherwise be able to have. And once we cleared that space, we were able to, through funding from E&E, and this year we've got a grant from Garden Stratford to put native plants back in. So again, we're supporting pollinators. So those are some of the projects we've been working on. How am I doing for time, Sheila? Okay.
Probably just about through.
Yeah, we've also planted native grasses along the multi-use trail that goes just out from, TJ Dolan Drive. So there's lots of work that the city's been doing to improve pollinators around it. And most importantly, we have a sign-up sheet here. This idea of pulling the periwinkle out of TJ Dolan or the Himalayan balsam, even if you don't know what they are, I will help you figure that out. So please come and join us. We hope to have lots of events that you can take part in.
We are so grateful for the work that you do on these plants. It's amazing the work that they do, and they love to have you help them. So go ahead and sign up. Now, is the tree trust next or tree cover? Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bobby, and I'm with the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. I'm also on energy and environment. One thing about removing the invasive, we talked about the iNaturalist app. So we'll be working with energy and environment and doing some sessions out at TJ Dolan, how to identify these invasives, and then how to use that app to register on the app. So that data goes in, and then using GIS, we can map out where all the invasives are, and then the city can have a map so we can locate and target areas where the invasives are. So that's. I want to talk to you about our tree power program, which is with Festival Hydro, and tree power started about 50 years ago with London Hydro. One of their employees approached us about using native trees for the community, that people could buy native trees, harness the power of trees, plant one in your backyard, shade, reduce the sun coming in, reduce your hydro costs if you're planting trees in your yard. And this program has grown. We're into 6 different communities. Stratford came on about 5, I think it's 6 years ago, but I was told about it, with Festival Hydro sponsoring the program. And this year we have 175 trees, and they're sycamore, red maple, red oak, tulip, this here black cherry, sugar maple, and paper birch. And Norway spruce, which is not a native, but is used for windbreaks, and it's not invasive. And there's a QR code where you can go on the website, shop.tender.ca, and you can see all the programs there, and you can get a tree. And the pickup is on April 26th down at the dog park. And the trees vary, all in 3,000 pots, and they vary between 100 centimeters to 175 centimeters. So they're good size.
Bonnie, are they free? Or?
No, they vary between $25 and $30.
Okay, thank you.
The tree costs is gone.
Well, that's peanuts for.
Yeah, I'm excited for you.
Yeah, that's terrific. Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say to people, if you don't have room for a big tree in your backyard, this year for the first time, you can buy one online through the Tree Power and donate it to the city to plant in one of the parks.
So if you didn't hear that, this year, if you don't have room on your property or your backyard, you can buy one and donate it to the city of Stratford, and we'll plant it on city property.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Marty. Tree Trust? Hi, my name is Mary Ann Vandenheuvel, and I'm with Tree Trust, obviously. We are a very small committee of people with very big ideas about very big trees. We know that large trees sequester about 7 to 9 tons, metric tons of carbon. And each year they sequester more. They pull carbon out of the environment. Now, we want to save those big trees and let them live as long as possible. So what we do with community donations is we hire arborists to come in, assess the tree, and trim it to ensure that it will live longer. So they do very judicious pruning of the tree. They thin out the crown a bit, take out any dead branches to reduce risk to human health and welfare, and help live that tree another 100 years. We also, for every tree we repair, we plant 2 new trees. But having said that, it would take 200 little trees to make up for the carbon that one big tree has. And so we hope to save as many big trees as possible in the community. So far, to date, we have done, over 6 years, we have done 6 trees, a tree a year. This year, we're hoping to branch out into the other surrounding communities, pun intended. We're hoping to get perhaps a tree in St. Mary's or Mitchell or Milverton. And one of the events that we do every year is Tree of the Year. And so we are open to nominations. If anyone knows of a preferably native tree that is in need of help and it's nice to have a noteworthy tree. 2 years ago, we did the tree, the sugar maple on the hill at the old Stratford Central, now the Stratford Intermediate School. It's a tree that just about everybody in the community knows and loves. And we did some remedial root work on it as well as crown work. So if anybody has an idea of a tree that is important to them and one of the surrounding communities, please let us know. We have some information on here. Also a sign-up sheet for our a newsletter. We do not inundate the mailbox. We do like maybe 1 a year, so we're not scary because again, small committee. Okay. Thank you, Mary Ann. And now the genesis of Dawn Farwell, the Tri-County Master Gardeners.
Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Miller. I'm Tri-County Master Gardener. And the Master Gardener group is really a group that is it's a nonprofit and it is a volunteer organization that's really dedicated to inspiring and helping educate home gardeners. And in this case, the home gardening that we're talking about tonight is how can we introduce native plants to our different environments. We provide science-based information to home gardeners so that they've got a solid decision-making tool to work with. We also promote sustainability in our communities by participating in talks like this, and we take every opportunity we can to help educate the public on information sheets that tell you and have a picture of what that seed is going to grow into, and then what the conditions are, because it's very important that you understand the light conditions, the moisture conditions, that the seeds are going to need to be able to germinate and to thrive in where you plant them. So then, we also, have got a native plant sale coming up on June the 14th. It's going to be in the Avondale Church parking lot, and, we're going to be offering a number of native plant plugs, which is a plant that's probably going to be about 4 or 5 inches tall that you can take home and plant. There will be a small selection of native trees, and then there'll also be a small selection of native shrubs. So that's on June the 14th, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to see people there. We have at the back here is we've got a handout where we've got recommended books and also online resources that relate to tonight's topic. So if you'd like to take one of those with you, it does give you the websites and the different books that are available. And I'd just like to talk a little bit about my own personal experience on this topic. And if I go back to, well, it was right in at COVID, 2020. I had just retired when COVID hit, so I didn't have a lot to do outside of the home. But I have a large property, and I put in a large vegetable garden, and I was really disappointed in the results that I had. And when I started to research why I had such disappointing results, is I wasn't getting any pollination. My vegetables were stunted, or they didn't grow at all, or the plants flowered and then nothing happened. So I really didn't understand what was going on. But then when I started to look at my environment, my property is surrounded by cornfields and soybean fields where there are no pollinators. So I thought, well, if I'm going to make this garden a success, I'm going to have pollinators. So I built a pollinator garden beside my vegetable garden. And I was just dumbfounded by the number of pollinators that showed up that next year. So it's, that adage that you have from that old film that if you build it, they will come, they actually do come. So it's, it's amazing that the bugs actually will come, and you'll see things that you haven't seen on your property before. And for me, although I had seen the odd monarch butterfly once in a while, I now have red admiral butterflies. I've got painted lady butterflies, a number of different of the butterflies. And then I said to myself, when I'm going through this project of building a pollinator garden, is what can I do as one person to combat climate change? Because, I'm just one person. What can I do? And I thought, well, I've got a larger property. I've got 8 acres, and I've got space to plant trees and shrubs. So I decided that's what I'm going to do. So I really, thought it through and like, what can I do? So you might only be dealing with a balcony, or a condo with a very small space, but you can always do something. So if you just, kind of put on your thinking cap and say, what can I really do to impact it? There's more ways than what you really think that you can. So I think that's Dawn's, after the breaks, activity is coming up with those ways of how you in your own personal space can come up with something. And then hopefully as a community, everyone can come together and provide that pollinator pathway, which will keep the pollinators, because most pollinators, they don't go, I think it's bees, they'll only go 500 yards to gather pollen. So you really need to have that interconnected pathway from property to property to really make that impact. So as Dawn said, get neighbors involved, get friends involved, get involved on public space. If you don't have a garden that you can work on, then there's lots of public projects too that you could get involved with to have that one little impact, how you as a person can impact climate change.
Thank you, Diane. That was excellent. I hope this inspired. We have a confession to make. Our photographer is not able to be here tonight, and I forgot to nail somebody ahead of time. So if somebody who is here, has a camera on their phone, who would do me the favor of, Laurie, would you take a picture of Dawn? And each of the presenters at the back? Okay, thank you very much, Ellen. And, now we have fabulous treats from, we have tea from a member of our steering committee, and we have, cookies and coffee from Rebel. So please enjoy the exhibits, please do look at them, there's a lot of work in those, and enjoy the refreshments. When you come back, be prepared for something kind of crazy and kind of fun, okay?
Don't forget to sign up.
Oh, yeah, and not sign up.